Alright everyone, welcome to Thursday's video as we count down the days until the rest of Celtic's season begins. Good amount of Celtic chat today, a few interesting things that I want us to discuss. But we start with something pretty crazy that happened elsewhere in Scottish football yesterday. You probably know what I'm talking about. Yes, Victor Wanyama, remember him? One of our record ever sales, probably one of the best players to play for us over the past 15 years or so. I actually had a debate with someone recently who reckoned that Wanyama was possibly one of the most overrated Celtic players of the recent years, just given how he was actually, rated and what he actually offered for us. Anyway, that's a discussion for another day. He's back in Scottish football, everyone, and he's not just signed for a Premiership team. He's gone lower leagues, and for me, one of the most remarkable Scottish football signings that we have seen in a long time. He's signed for Dunfermline Athletic, reuniting with Neil Lennon, who is now the manager at East End Park. Yeah, I couldn't quite believe it when I woke up and saw that. It was one of those ones that just seemed very, very hard to believe. I mean, I'm not going to say that you would take Victor Wanyama in the Celtic midfield. Would you? Probably not, but certainly going to a team like Dunfermline, who apparently beat QPR to signature, so I don't know what's going on here. I guess it's the Neil Lennon effect. But yeah, Victor Wanyama, only 33 years old as well, so he's still got some football to be played, and a hell of a coup for Dunfermline. Last seen at CF Montreal, where he played with Alistair Johnston. He left them in January, so earlier this year. And yeah, back in Scottish football. So yeah, fabulous stuff. Dunfermline's struggling at the moment. They're second bottom of the Championship. I think they're only going upwards under Neil Lennon. Lennon's first game this weekend, potentially Victor Wanyama's first match as well, if he gets international clearance, is against Scott Brown's Ayr United. Yes, it is going to be a hell of a cracker at Somerset Park on Saturday. Plenty of big Celtic connections in that match. I was also trying to ponder what other Neil Lennon favourites could make the move to East End Park, and I thought of Adam Matthews, who's apparently now playing for Shamrock Rovers. Effie Ambrose seems like a bit of an obvious one. He's currently with, wait for this, Northern Premier League Premier Division club Workington down south, and maybe Tony Watt. He's another one that I thought of, but the majority of the Neil Lennon favourites from his first spell at Celtic have retired at this stage. But yeah, Wanyama, what a coup. Couldn't believe it when I read that. Anyway, on with the Celtic stuff, and the headline story that was breaking last night is that the Scottish Sun saying we are set to offer a new contract to our player of the season. Yes, I just called him that, Daizen Maeda. Maeda's current deal runs out in the summer of 2027, so he's got a couple of years after this one. But we're set to offer him an extended deal, improved terms. He's clearly a player who's going to receive a lot of interest this summer and beyond. I mean, 28 goals he scored for us this season. Which is just a brilliant tally. Still get 10 games to play potentially as well for us. So the rate he's scoring at the moment. And it's funny, if you actually look at the goals he scored, like so many of them have come in the past 3 months. Like he's really, if he'd kind of kept up his current scoring form all the way through the season, he'd probably be on like 50 goals or something. So at the rate he's playing at the moment, you would back him to get to 35 goals. And that would put him up there with like the best goal scoring seasons we've seen at Celtic in the past couple of decades. I think we're basically talking Kyogo a couple of years ago, he got 34, and Lee Griffiths of course scored 40 in season 2015-16. So Daizen's going to be right up there, you would think, by the end of the season, and he would have scored 4 goals in the Champions League as well, which is a great tally. So yeah, he's had an amazing season. Even if we just go past the goals and look at what he brings to the team, what he's always brought to the team, he's just such an important player for us, and there's absolutely no doubt that there's going to be real interest in him. So it's not really much of a surprise to see Celtic looking to tie him up for another couple of years at least. He was asked about his Celtic future, I think, just before the derby by Sky Sports. They did a piece on him, And he didn't really give too much away. He said, "I'm not sure, that's a difficult question. While I am here, I always want to fight and play for Celtic. I want to keep focusing and playing for the team." So yeah, let's just hope that this progresses and we hear more about Celtic looking to tie him down, because like, what a player he is. As I said the other day, I was watching him playing for Japan the other night, just the first half that I put on. It was a pretty poor game against Saudi Arabia. It finished 0-0, but within like 30 seconds of putting the stream on, he'd hit the bar. He'd been sent through in goal and hit the bar. Should probably have scored. He then had one flashed across the goal that he could have got the end of and tapped it in, and then he dispossessed a defender and ran 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper and kind of fluffed his lines. But he's just like, when you watch him, he's like a complete magnet for chances at the moment. So it's massively exciting having him at the club, and you just want to keep having him. So what a boost it would be to everyone at the club if we can somehow get a new deal for Daizen over the line and get him signed up. Just generally on the contract situation at the club, this is whose deal is up over the next few years. And if your favourite player isn't there, it's because their current deal runs to 2029 or later. I think Nicholas Kuhn, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Alistair Johnston are just three of the players who are contracted until 2029. But in terms of the ones that are up before then, this summer, Greg Taylor and Jeff Schlupp, obviously both left backs, which isn't ideal. Schlupp's obviously only on loan, but we could maybe hope to have him signed for next season. We'll have to wait and see if that happens. Kieran Tierney coming in will help that a bit. Following summer, Kasper Schmeichel. I think people maybe think with the World Cup happening at the end of next season, and obviously Denmark would need to qualify and all that, but people possibly looking at the World Cup being where Kasper would want to finish. Don't think there's any guarantees of that. He still looks pretty good to me, although we'll come on to something later on when someone doesn't agree with what I've just said. But yeah, next summer for Kasper, will we get any more than that from him at Celtic? I'm not so sure, but we'll just enjoy him where we've got him. Also next summer, James Forrest. Who knows with James Forrest? You'd think he'd probably sign a new deal. Johnny Kenny and Scott Bain as well. The following summer, at the moment, as we said, Daizen's contract is up. The club clearly looking to change that. Luke McCowan only signed a 3-year deal last summer, so he's up in 2027, and Anthony Ralston as well. The following summer, so we're now talking, 3 years from now? We've got Arnie Engels, Rail Hatate, Callum McGregor, Liam Scales and Hyun-Jun Yang. So that's a good bit away as well. So I think in general Celtic in a pretty good place with the contracts. As is always the case with these contracts, just because they're contracted until that year doesn't mean that the players are going to be there. And in many cases, you know, the players leave before then. I mean, Arnie Engels, is he going to be with us in the summer of 2028? You would probably think not, but it's good to have him signed up anyway. So that's where we're at. Daizen Maeda, the club keen to offer him a new contract. We'll just have to follow that story. Elsewhere, Alistair Johnston, who will now be back at Lennoxtown, I guess, he's been speaking a bit about how important an 18 months it is for him coming up. He's a Canada international. They're hosting next summer's World Cup alongside the USA and Mexico. So it's a pretty big time for Alistair Johnston, also Cameron Carter-Vickers and Austin Trusty with the US team. So real motivation for them to be starting for their country in such a big tournament. Johnson sees himself as one of the older heads with Canada as well as Celtic. He says, Jesse Marsh has really empowered a couple of us guys, and it's something that I've really enjoyed, and I think that I've brought that back to Celtic as well, trying to help Callum McGregor and the other older guys in any way possible. It's an unbelievable time to be given that opportunity and that kind of license to take a bigger role because we're going into a home World Cup. I'm lucky enough that my career even aligns with that. It's a really exciting time to be a Canadian footballer. I'm just kind of living the dream. It's a good way to think about it for Alistair Johnston. I mean, Canada have never hosted a World Cup previously, and yeah, his career has aligned with him. Not just his career has, but like the very fact that he's currently a Canada international has given him the opportunity to play in a home World Cup. So real motivation for him. I think more short term, as Celtic fans, we're just hoping that he can get back to a good level between now and the end of the season, starting on Saturday. I think he's had a really good season, Johnston. I think he's a great player. The derby, he was abysmal. I mean, we all have our off days doing our job, etc. As you can probably tell, I have a fair few off days doing this, and Johnston's allowed one here and there. He had a complete shocker in the derby, but he's earned enough kind of credit or goodwill for us to move on, and hopefully he can get back to performing well come Saturday. Other than that, things are just ticking on as we exit the final international break of the season. I think Brendan Rodgers will be speaking to the media tomorrow. We'll get a pretty lengthy injury update. Obviously, the main person in question there is going to be Kasper Schmeichel. And a bit of media drama surrounding Kasper in Denmark after the Danes exited the Nations League. They lost to Portugal. I mentioned on Monday that, talking about his performance, there'd been some good moments. He saved a penalty from Cristiano Ronaldo. He was at fault for a couple of the goals where he didn't look particularly great. Picked up a pretty bad injury that we're still waiting to find the full extent out of. And carried on with that injury because Denmark didn't have any subs to make. So, given his sacrifice for his country, a bit of a surprise to hear Danish outlet Extra Bladet, and in particular writer Anders Olsen, posting an opinion piece after the game titled "Farvel Kasper Schmeichel," and you can probably work out what farewell translates to. It's farewell. I'll just read a little bit of this. So it goes, if you look at it from a football perspective, we conceded 3 goals against Portugal that we wouldn't have conceded with a better keeper. Let's turn the 3 goals around. Schmeichel is nowhere near taking the unfortunate own goal from Joachim Andersen, and he ends up looking like he has no chance. But a younger and more athletic keeper would have made it. Yes, the direction is surprising, but the ball has been in the air for 6 months and it hasn't even reached the post that far. The goal to make it 2-3 is hopeless. Why don't you grab the ball, Kasper? Notice how long it takes Kasper to move out to the ball from the high, slow cross being hit, and so on and so on. Somehow it actually went up a notch from there. And these, I think 3 or 4 examples, parts of the article I'm going to read out, were actually published online by one of the biggest media outlets in Denmark. I don't know if they were in the paper as well. Okay, maybe Kasper Schmeichel will do better in handball, where it is not as important that the goalkeeper can catch and pass with his feet. Oh, ouch. And it goes downhill from here, I can warn you. An age of 38 years is not a problem in itself, but when you are also plump and heavy, it is a huge problem. Fat shaming, very nice. Next up, this is the worst one for me. Instead, Kasper stands on the line and at the last moment runs out and boxes like a polio child. And finally, farewell Kasper Schmeichel. It was hopefully your last important international match. Dear oh dear. Fair to say this has caused a stir in Denmark, so much so that Danish PFA chief Michael Sahl Hansen has commented on it, saying it is way over the line. Hopefully the journalist is undergoing some serious soul searching, because the way of writing about another person is completely wrong, and we in the Players Association have to say that clearly and distinctly. It's completely distasteful to try to denigrate a player in that way by drawing parallels to a deeply serious illness and by fat shaming. So yeah, I assume they just don't have editorial standards in Denmark. Certainly not like Scotland, where we obviously have that kind of thing. Okay, we'll find out the situation with Kasper tomorrow. Don't expect to see him playing on Saturday. But yeah, we love you, Kasper. And I love all you lot. I'll chat to you all tomorrow.